Welcome and hello. Sorry that this isn't more FNAF content. I promise the next video is coming soon and it will be the end of the Chica saga, the longest run of videos of my character design series, mostly because she is the most involved character I have created for that series. Enough about that. You read the title, and clearly I'm here to talk about a new series I haven't mentioned on my channel before. Welcome to the amazing alternate reality of Pendog's creative library. To start off, before I get into my theory, or more likely my big fat headcanon, Pendog Creative Library is a fictional digital archive that is meant to preserve creative endeavors, according to them, but really it's a fan-made character archive for a fictional universe. Basically, in this universe, there's a bunch of characters that existed in fiction, anywhere from commercials to advertisements to makeup products, and these characters have fallen to the wayside. They were extremely popular for a decade or even 20 years or so, and then in the modern age, they are a blink and you miss it memory. Not everything could be Mickey Mouse and the Flintstones, where they're in the cultural zeitgeist enough that we know what they are, even if we don't interact with active media about them. Some things get left behind in the past and are greatly forgotten. For example, the predecessor of Mickey Mouse, gosh, I'm a bad example of this. I forgot his name. What's the name of that rabbit? Oswald the Lucky Rabbit for a very long time was a forgotten character in media. Extremely popular when he first came out, and then completely forgotten after he got sold. Well, he didn't get sold. It was this whole thing about Disney working for one company, and that company technically owning the rights to the rabbit. Anyways, we obviously know him now because he was included in some newer media in the past couple of decades, but for a long time, he was basically forgotten by history. In Pendog's creative library, like most ARGs, yes, this is an ARG website. I forgot to mention that. I mean, I thought it was obvious when I said this was taking place in an alternate universe, but let me get my head back on straight. In this alternate universe, these are a collection of characters that have not been brought back, normally because the companies that own them stopped existing, and using these characters would probably be problematic for whatever company came afterward. Some of them belong to media and companies that ended with tragedy and catastrophe. Now, you're probably tempted at this point to compare Pendog's creative library to Welcome Home, but this ARG is significantly different in the sense that it requires you to do a lot more work to get access to some of its media, as it requires you to be able to delete assets from the website, which they give you the tools and explanation on how to do that. But, you know, if you have a shitty laptop like mine, that ain't happening. So it's kind of a pain in the ass to get some of the media. And more importantly, Welcome Home, if you don't know what Welcome Home is, I would be surprised since it got super fucking popular during 2020 or whatever. Welcome Home is a story about a forgotten puppet show that is now lost media. The actual clips of the show are missing, but there's some art and concept stuff and merchandise that got left behind. In that series, the story is more focused on the mystery of why the show ended and where the things go. There's no clue on like who the creators are, who the voice actors are. Nobody knows information about the show's production. They just have media. And really, the story is less to do with that and more to do with the characters because, spoiler alert, the puppets in Welcome Home are real, in a sense. In their fictional reality, the puppet show... So this is the problem with some of these ARGs. There's like fictional layering. Let me explain. In the ARG of Welcome Home, in the alternate reality, that is, this show existed. People watched it, people remembered it, but it wasn't actually a TV show. The puppets were alive, and for some reason, the reality bled into ours enough to be watched on television, because they acknowledged the fact that they were on a TV show. Some of the stuff they recorded is for the show, while other parts of their day is like their normal lives. But they're puppets. They shouldn't be alive, but they are. So it begs the question, what exactly is going on? Are they from another universe where humans and puppets interact, where it's like a Muppet situation, where there's just a world where puppets and people interact, and then that reality got bled into a different reality. Or, and the mystery is really what the hell is going on, what is going on with, like, home, and it's all about that. But Pendog's creative library is interesting because it's not really about the characters and this fictional world, but more about, it's a critique of media in general. It talks about the rise and fall of characters. It talks about how characters are reclaimed by society, how people use art and media to vent or to show themselves. What they both have in common, however, Welcome Home and Pendog Creative Library, is they're both queer pieces of media. I'm pretty sure the people both involved in these individual series are queer people, and they tell the story of how a lot of queer people get treated in the industry to a certain extent. Welcome Home's a little bit more subtle in that aspect. Meanwhile, Pendog Library literally hits you in the face where, yeah, there have always been fucking queer people and they've been in charge of your media and they've made things. It's just that people hide them. Also, they would lose their jobs if they were exposed for being queer. Also, there were people with mental health issues. There were also, people of color. Screw you, they did exist type of situations. Kind of like how people deny that Betty Boop is clearly, although she was originally a dog, she got turned into a human based off of black culture. And people are like, oh, Betty Boop's not black. Nah, nah, nah. Like, straight up, Betty Boop is literally based off of, like, a real person. She's only colored white. I mean, I think her original person she's based off of is a lady named Esther Jones. And they literally stole the boop boop be-doo thing from, like, that lady, give or take. And she had the same curls and hairstyle because, even though that hairstyle was worn by both types of ladies during the flapper days, it was a big thing in the black community at the time. And then white people liked her, so they left her skin tone white because, well, they didn't want to depict her the way they liked depicting black people back in the day. If you know the old Tom and Jerry cartoons, you know the old Tom and Jerry cartoons. You know what I mean? But I'm doing a terrible job describing this. Let me try, in short, to summarize it. Welcome Home focuses more on what happens if censorship and control in an almost cult-like way was affecting a fictional universe. That maybe the censors or outside forces were muting actual lives of people. Like, what if there was like how Bert and Ernie are, like, everybody thinks they're gay. Imagine if Bert and Ernie was real and they were gay, but there was something in their reality trying to force them to not be gay, resetting their memory, fucking with them, to keep this illusion of a perfect neighborhood with nothing problematic in it. Meanwhile, Pendog's creative library is telling the story of real people and real artists. Of course, they're not actually real people and real artists. It's sort of a creative exercise of, you know what I mean? It feels realistic, honestly. I could totally believe a ton of these characters are real, and their artists were real, and their stories are real, because it's very grounded in reality until the hocus pocus magic starts coming up, which is the whole point of my theory. Because for a while, I couldn't quite figure out what was going on. I didn't know what was happening, because we need to talk about the big bad of the series of sorts. But before we get into that, stop this video, go to the website, check it out, and then come back. I'm going to give you a few seconds. Well, for me, it's a few seconds. For you, hopefully, you spent a good hour having fun. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. You want a better tutorial on how to navigate the website? I recommend going to Night Minds. He gives you a pretty thorough dive of the video if you're like me and have an attention span issue or very dyslexic and reading for a long time hurts me eyeballs. And then come back. Okay. Boop, boop, be-doo. Okay, I'm assuming you came back and I didn't embarrass myself for nothing. When we were first introduced to Miss Hegarty, she was the mysterious mascot of a cigarette brand that seemingly repeated in history over and over again in different characters and different companies. She is like the one character who actually seems alive and supernatural, but not in the same way that Welcome Home is, where these characters live in their own separate universe and it's bleeding into ours. No, like, she's an actual physical character in the world. Like, she's a character. but she's also alive, right? And she has these things, like these imageries that she keeps showing us. She's a worm in an apple. She's a beautiful woman. She has horns. She has halos. But she's like mixed up with a bunch of other memes and stuff. And when I mean memes, I mean like memes as in like cultural objects and like symbols and shit, not like meme haha. So she's like a collection of like very common memes: the beautiful seductress, the beautiful perfect woman, the worm in the apple, similar to like the snake and the apple from like Adam and Eve. There's demon imagery, there's angel imagery, there's this, references to Greek mythology. She's called Miss Hecate, which I believe is the Greek goddess of witchcraft, or the Roman goddess. I can't remember off the top of my head. Maybe she's a goddess from a different pantheon, but I'm pretty sure. She's also, one of her other identities, she's called Hera, and I think she's also known as like Helena of Troy. So she's clearly mimicking these like very important women, and she's also feels like she's based off of Lolth. But she's also this very like superficial character. Like, her connections to these pieces of media, these things that she's connected to, they're things that are bad for you: poisoned makeup, cigarettes, shitty products. It's all flat. And also, she just isn't correct. She's not using these symbols she's not ever used with these symbols and imageries correctly. In fact, she misquotes them a lot. She's known to even show people fake history, not intentionally, but almost like she is just this surface level understanding of the art and symbols that she's using. And then it clicks to me. I know what she is, and I know why looking into her was a problem. She's a mimetic hazard. She is a living meme that is slowly trying to keep its relevance by changing itself over and over again. She is someone's tulpa a long, long time ago. Maybe she was a group of people's tulpa. Maybe she was... Okay, maybe I should stop for a moment and explain something that's probably not fully understood. The word tulpa has been completely and utterly butchered by people on the internet, specifically Reddit, who has turned it into giving themselves psychosis so they can squish imaginary anime titties. Let me explain. In the original understanding of tulpas, in the original context, they were supernatural beings created from collective belief, or in the case of a practitioner with enough focus, a single person who wills it into being by focusing it into existence through meditation, which it fits very well what is happening here. These are not real creatures, but they are somehow alive, and they originate from people, the collective consciousness. Now, you're probably saying, now, Violet, that is quite the jump to make, but I have a lot of evidence towards why I believe that this is the case. However, YouTube doesn't like when I make my videos too long, so unfortunately, I know how terrible this is, I have to make this into a part 2. So, if you find this interesting, be excited for the part 2. I might do more stuff about the Pendog's creative library later, if it is liked. If not, I'm just going to finish part 2 so I can get my thoughts out into the wind like a good old fart. Anyways, thanks for coming. I'll see you next time. Love ya. Bye-bye.